Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk about September, which is Cimmerian September. Yes, Samrian September has returned. That great reading event devoted to reading Robert E. Howard, the greatest pulp writer of all time. And you can read anything Robert E. Howard. You could read Conan or Cull or Solomon Kane or his horror stories. He wrote all kinds of stuff, Robert E. Howard. I actually did a recommendations video for Cimmerian September, which I'll try to remember to link down below. But what the heck are we going to be reading during September? So this is my very ambitious and probably not to be fully realized TBR for September. So what are we going to be reading, Roger? Well, for Samrian September, I'm going to be reading this, Borak and Other Desert Adventures. I'm really looking forward to this because Borak is one of my favorite Robert E. Howard characters, a pure adventure character. Borak was a character that Robert E. Howard created early when he was just a very young Robert E. Howard, but he evolved the character over time. And so when the official Borak series began to appear, it was really late, actually, in Robert E. Howard's career. And so, as it says on the back here, the wily Texan Borak, a hardened fighter who stalks the sandscapes of Afghanistan like a vengeful wolf, is rivaled among Howard's creations only by Conan himself. So he's a great adventure character. And these are stories that take place in Afghanistan in the early 20th century. And this doesn't just have the Borak stories. He had a couple other characters that appear in this book. We have Kirby O'Donnell, who I think was in 2 or 3 stories, I can't remember. And Steve Clarney is in this book as well. But it's mostly Borak. And what a fantastic character. I originally read the Borak stories in 3 separate mass market paperbacks that were published in the 1970s. And I still have those right over there. But this collection from Del Rey, from the wonderful Del Rey set of Robert E. Howard, has everything from the official Borak series of stories and all these other great desert adventures. So yeah, this is going to be what I read. And as usual, it is fully illustrated, as all of these Del Rey editions are. So this has a couple illustrators. The main illustrator in this book, where is the cover page here? The main illustrator is Tim Bradstreet. Tim Bradstreet, who did that. And then we also have some illustrations from Jim and Ruth Keegan, and they did the cover there. And the only thing about that is that Jim and Ruth Keegan's version of Borak and Tim Bradstreet's version of Borak are very different. So the art styles clash a little bit just because the main character looks so different in the illustrations. But they're both great artists, so there you go. And the stories are just great, straight adventure tales. No supernatural shenanigans going on in the Borak tales. They are just straight adventure. Much influenced by Talbot Mundy and some other writers that Robert E. Howard greatly admired. So yeah, this is what I'm going to read, and this is probably the first thing that I'm going to read in September. But as I mentioned, Robert E. Howard came up with Borak as a character very early in his career. And some of those earlier stories and fragments have been collected in this collection. This is the early adventures of Borak. This was published by the Robert E. Howard Foundation Press. And this is mostly unfinished stories with a very early version of Borak. So these stories are not part of the official Borak series, but should prove to be really interesting. This book is full of stuff that I've never read before. So I'm very happy that the Robert E. Howard Foundation Press printed this book and made available all of these writings from Robert E. Howard about this early version of El Borak. So I'm going to try to get to this Cimmerian September for sure. So there's that. But we also have Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. Every month for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, we read a book that you can get really, really cheap. In fact, you can get it for free on Project Gutenberg. All the books in Roger's Cheap Old Book Club are available for free on Project Gutenberg. And the book that we will be reading for September is The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood. And we're reading the Howard Pyle version of the Adventures of Robin Hood. There were a few different versions of Robin Hood's story, of course, but this is one of the most popular. And I read this once when I was a kid. My stepfather had a copy of this book, and that's how I first read it when I was just a little kid. But I'm looking forward to reading it again. And Howard Pyle didn't just write the story, he also did the illustrations in this book. And the illustrations are fantastic. This is just an awesome book. It's a beautiful book. It has great artwork. And from what I remember, the reading experience was really good. This, I remember being a really good book. At least it was when I was a kid. I'm sure it still will be. So yes, for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, this September is The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, written and illustrated by Howard Pyle. So that's going to be a ton of fun. I look forward to that. Also, I'm hoping to get to part 3 of Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Moon Maid saga. I read part 2 last month. And part 3 is a story called The Red Hawk. The Red Hawk. The Moon Men have come down from the moon and taken over the earth. And now we have the Resistance, or what I think is going to be the Resistance in the Red Hawk. It's been a while since I've read The Moon Men and the Red Hawk. So yeah, this is part 3 of the Moon Maid trilogy. And it's a really nice edition. This is the centennial edition of this book. And it's full of artwork, this edition of the trilogy. It's got some great artwork from many different editions of the book and of the story over the years. So this should be fun. This is proven to be a very entertaining trilogy. The first 2 books are awesome. So I expect nothing less from part 3, The Red Hawk. So yeah, The Red Hawk. And it's a wee little thing, so it shouldn't take long to read. And then we're going to get weird again, Roger. Let me take this out of its protective envelope. Weird Tales. So this month I read 2 issues of Weird Tales from 1933. I read the October issue and the November issue, and this is the December issue of Weird Tales. And I read the other 2 issues electronically, but this is a physical copy that was sent to me by the great Grammaticus Magnus, who has a fabulous channel, which you should all watch because it's better than this mess. But he sent us this, Weird Tales, for December 1933. So we are going to read this. This will be September's Weird Tales, and it's appropriate because it's got the first printing of a Robert E. Howard horror story called Old Garfield's Heart, which is a pretty good horror story and has been reprinted many tales. It's been reprinted many times, but this is the first time it was printed here in this very issue of Weird Tales. So this will be fun. But wait, there's more, Roger. How much of this will I get to? I wonder. We'll see. So every month I read Doc Savage, and I'm reading Doc Savage in the order that they were originally published. And so this month I'm reading a book called The Czar of Fear. In September I'm reading a book called The Czar of Fear, which was the 9th adventure of Doc Savage, which came out in November of 1933. Now I have a double here. There are some Doc Savage doubles, and number 22 in the Ballantine series was the Tsar of Fear, even though it was the 9th story, not the 22nd story. Ballantine was funny that way in that they printed them out of order. And the second part, of course, is the Fortress of Solitude. Doc Savage did have the original Fortress of Solitude. Superman stole it from him. Superman, man. But I'm not going to be reading that until later when I get to when it was actually published in order. So in September, it's going to be the Tsar of Fear. So that is the book I'll be reading for Doc Savage. But I'm also going to be reading a shadow novel. And the shadow novel I'll be reading is this one, Double Z. So this is from the Pyramid series of paperbacks that reprinted stories from the Shadow magazine, reprinted the novels from the Shadow magazine, with mostly new covers by Steranko. And Steranko just did a wonderful job with the covers for the Shadow in this series. And so this is the one I'll be reading in September. I was hoping to read it this month, but I just wasn't able to get to it. So in September, The Shadow, Double Z. And the last thing on the pile here is actually a Conan pastiche, which a friend of mine sent me. He sent me this, Conan the Valorious by John Maddox Roberts. Now, usually I avoid most Conan pastiche, but my friend assures me that this is a really good one and that I should read it. So I will try to read Conan the Valorious in Cimmerian September, and we will see how it is. This is from the Tor series. This was published in 1985, I think. Was it? Let me see. Yes, 1985. Now, some of the Tor books were terrible. A lot of them actually were pretty bad, but some of them were okay, and some of them were good. So hopefully this is going to be one of the good ones. We'll see. But I will read it and report back to you and let you know. It's an interesting flying-haired Conan on the cover here of Conan the Valorious. So we'll see, but that's everything. I couldn't, and I'll be lucky to get through all of that. I have no idea what kind of reading month I'm going to have. I really don't know how much time I'll have or how successful I'll be. This month, actually, I've done pretty well. I think I've gotten to everything I wanted to get to up to this point. So we'll see how it goes in Samrian September. But I look forward to it. What are you going to read in Samrian September? Robert E. Howard wrote a bunch of great stuff. Greatest pulp writer of all time. Okay, guys, we'll catch you next time.